Good evening. Big story coming in. The black box of the Air India Boeing 787-8, the AI 171 Ahmedabad to Gatwick, London flight that crashed seconds after takeoff. That black box has just been recovered. The recovery of the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder from the tail section of the aircraft, relatively intact, as you saw in those images. That's expected to reveal the causes of the crash. The flight data recorder or the cockpit voice recorder has the last 25 hours of that aircraft recorded, because after that it gets deleted on the next flight. It's once again, it's the new data that's fed in. But how long does that entire process take to decode what's on that black box? For families, it's endless pain. There's disbelief, but there is that desire to know the truth. And that's our top focus story on India First.
Big breakthrough 24 hours after crash. Black box of ill-fated flight recovered. Black box to reveal crucial details. What led to the fatal plunge? What caused the crash? Big focus on India First.
Information we can share with our viewers. There are teams from Boeing, Seattle, and both in the US and teams from the United Kingdom that are coming into India. They will assist in the investigations. The aim is to know the truth. But the big question remains, how long does that process take? What are lessons to be learned? The fact is that this Air India Dreamliner was actually the workhorse of Air India, flying long haul almost non-stop. On India Today, we get you a 360-degree perspective on that big developing story. Also on India First, Israel bombs Iran, and how wave after wave of airstrikes, missile strikes that have taken place, drone strikes, including some drones that were made and launched from inside Iran, taking down not just their very crucial surface-to-air missile launchers, missiles, even their depots and production centers. More than 20 top Iranian military commanders, including the chief of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps and their army chief, have been killed. West Asia is in turmoil, and Israel's ambassador to India, Reuven Azar, he joins me at 8:30 tonight on India First. I'm Gaurav Sawant. As always, the flight data recorder and the cockpit voice recorder, the black box of Air India flight AI 171, has been recovered. Aviation experts say air crash investigations can take at times months, at times even years, to reveal the exact cause or a combination of factors, combination of causes that may have led to the crash. The black box with this exhaustive flight data, operations data. Now, this black box is expected to shed light on all the vital parameters and conversations inside the cockpit. Our Aviation Bureau brings you our top story.
Over 24 hours later, it is still not known what caused Air India Flight 171 to crash. In a big breakthrough, the black box of the plane has been recovered. Ministry of Civil Aviation sources tell India Today that the black box was found on the rooftop of the building that the flight hit as it crashed. The emergency locator transmitter has also been found. ELT is a safety device that is installed in the aircraft to send out distress signals to help locate the aircraft in case of an emergency. Teams from India's Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau, US and UK experts are also on ground looking for clues and evidence. The video of the moment of crash shows how the Boeing 787 Dreamliner's wheels retracted briefly before the pilot pushed them back down, likely sensing a sudden loss of thrust just seconds after the takeoff.
Right now, all the engines were operating normally.
Yes.
Now we can see one engine has failed.
Yes.
And simultaneously you can see the second engine has failed. Although you can see I'm pitching all the way back up, but my aircraft is sinking and it is just.
So this is exactly what would have happened. Both the engines have failed, and you see the aircraft going down, crashing. You see the buildings, and this is exactly what happened. That's what we understand from the initial reports.
Investigators and forensic teams will now be piecing together the final moments of Air India Flight 171 through key evidence, including the black box that will help reconstruct the flight path and uncover what went wrong during takeoff. Analysis of the wreckage will also be done to determine the sequences of events and identify any mechanical failures. Maintenance logs review will reveal if there were any issues with the Boeing plane or missed repairs in the past. Prime Minister Modi visited the crash site, spending close to half an hour there. The Prime Minister also met Air India CEO Capable Wilson at the spot. He later met the injured, the lone survivor of the Air India flight, and former Gujarat CM Vijay Rupani's family. There are more questions than answers surrounding the Ahmedabad plane crash. All eyes are now on the black box and what it will reveal. With Amit Bharadwaj in Ahmedabad, Bureau Report, India Today.
So what exactly is the black box, and why is it so important that the black box be recovered? And since it's been recovered, what is it likely to reveal? Well, the black box, or the flight data recorder, holds all the information about a plane. It can withstand an explosion, it can withstand fire, water pressure, air crash. There's also the cockpit voice recorder, and that records radio transmissions or any conversation that takes place between the pilot and the co-pilot, and every check is done, it's audible. So the pilot says something, the co-pilot audibly says check. Then it records the conversation between the pilot and the air crew, the conversation that the pilot may have with passengers on board. Everything is recorded. Records all conversations and even the engine noise. Flight data recorder records up to 1,000 plus flight parameters. It tracks altitude, airspeed, flight headings, the pitch and the roll of the aircraft, the status of the autopilot. All of that information is likely to be revealed here. Now, there are several pilots and aviation experts and enthusiasts across the world who are looking at images of that final takeoff, and then the aircraft sinking and then mushing to ground. Seconds later, they're trying to piece together what could have happened. The Boeing 787-8 is considered among the safest aircraft in the world. In fact, this is the first ever hull crash of the Dreamliner that started flying way back in 2009. Now, this Air India Dreamliner was truly a workhorse. Recent flight history of VT A and B shows the aircraft was flying Delhi, Paris, Delhi, Delhi, Tokyo, Delhi, Delhi, Melbourne, Delhi, Delhi, Paris, Delhi again, Delhi, Frankfurt, Delhi, virtually every day from June 6 to June 11. And even on June 12, Delhi, Ahmedabad, it had already done that leg, and then it crashed as it took off for London, Gatwick. What does the black box recovery mean, and how soon will we know the truth? Joining me on India First is Jitendra Bhargav, former Executive Director, Air India, and author of The Descent of Air India. Mirza Faizan is an aerospace scientist and inventor of ground reality information processing systems, somebody who was associated with the 787 Dreamliner, and squad leader Debolina Das is a commercial pilot and aviation specialist joining us on the broadcast. Mr. Bhargav, welcome. Now that the black box has been recovered, how long in your appreciation before the truth emerges, sir?
Look, it's been more than 24 hours since the accident took place, the horrific accident. While on one side, there are people, the DNAs of the people who perished, etc., being conducted to get on. On the other side, the people's expectations of an early investigation to begin and conclusion drawn what happened. While any number of people who are experienced in the airline industry can speculate, comment, and say this is probably what has happened. But what gives the seal of finality as to this is what exactly happened is the black box. Because anything to do with the aircraft, whether it is the speed at which it's going, at the altitude that it has, or, for example, the conversation that is taking place between the commander and the co-pilot, everything gets recorded. And when this is decoded, you get the first set of clues that this was possibly the reason why it happened. It may be probable, one can say that the captain did blurt out in the cockpit when he was trying to ensure that we can climb further, the nose is up, that he's hit something and that this is what had happened. And we'll have to wait for it rather than speculate, get onto the black box, investigate.
Yes.
In my opinion, since the Boeing team has to be here, the regulatory agencies is here, airline people are here, and you decode the whole thing and come out with it. And then comes the data analysis on what's happened, what your analysis. It could be anything from 3 days to 10 days to look at it, to get on with it. The only
Okay.
part that I can say that one thing that I did not experience, and fortunately so during my tenure of 20 days, 20 years in Air India, was that we didn't have a situation of this kind. So I may not
And
be
yes.
100% accurate with my observation as to how much time it takes, but my experience shows that yes, it could be 3 to 10 days to come to a conclusion and said these
Okay.
were the factors.
Mirza Faizan, we're told data from the black box is put on a simulator and then an assessment made on what may have happened, what perhaps went wrong. Does it take 3 to 10 days, weeks, months, or could it be years in your appreciation for truth to emerge? And does truth finally emerge?
Oh yes, truth will finally come out. This is, to me, this looks like a really, open and shut kind of investigation, right?
Okay.
Because we do not only will have access to the black box data, we have footage of the aircraft getting crashed. Where do you get a footage of aircraft last final moments of the video getting crashed? That's a really good piece of evidence for the investigator as well. So what we do is when we there are two type of data from the black box: the CDR and the CVR, cockpit voice recorder, and the FDR, which is the flight data recorder. So cockpit voice recorder, we will immediately know what was going on. It actually records not only the communication between two pilots or the pilots and the ATC, it also records if there's any buzzer, any master alarm, anything which is coming up. So investigator will know what is the exact state of cockpit at that point of time. FDR, we bring that data up. Not all data could be put on simulator
Okay.
to make sense, right? Yes, the aircraft orientation, the pitch, roll, and all that stuff can be put on. The engine parameter can be put on to see. But for example, at which point of time, let's say, just for the sake of explaining, there was some issue with the fuel pump. Now
Yes.
that data is being recorded, but that's an internal issue with the aircraft, which might not be available up there. So we do not have any way to put that data on on a simulator. So there will be data which will be put on the simulator, and at the same time there will be an internal analysis of the data millisecond by millisecond, like what is happening with the visible parameter versus what is happening in the invisible systems, which is going on parallelly. And that's
In
how
fact,
a
it's
whole story is built.
okay. You mentioned the fuel pumps. There are some who argue that could it be that both the engines were starved of fuel? Could it be contaminated fuel? I'll come to that aspect in just a moment. But Squad Leader Devolina Das, black box data, can it be faulted, or will truth emerge, or do questions still remain even after FDR and CVR, cockpit voice recorder and flight data recorder information is known?
So, as per my knowledge, if it is it's an evident problem with either the engines or the configuration of the aircraft or the fuel, which has caused the engine to starve. So, anything to do with these will be definitely recorded in the FDR and the CBR. And if these are the reasons, then definitely the answer will be out in 10 to 15 days. But sometimes, everything being okay, there might be a um, mix of all the reasons which could have caused the accident. In that case, we have to start eliminating what couldn't have happened to come to what is the final reason for the accident, which generally takes a lot of time, and then speculations start building and pressures start building, and then we have a lot of players involved to give out the result. So
Yes.
now, if we are not sure that what is the exact cause, if it is a configuration, engine stall, compressor stall, or the fuel pumps being clogged, if those are the four things that's happening, then the result will be out in a very short period, within 2 weeks or maximum a month. But if it is a combination of everything where we cannot pinpoint what it is, then the real Herculean task starts.
Okay. Mirza Faizan, what kind of data do we expect in this black box, and will that conclusively point to the cause, or, as Squad Leader Devulina said, combination of causes that may have led to the crash? Just in case we talk about the fuel pumps being clogged, will that be recorded in the flight data recorder or the cockpit voice recorder in case the engines were starved of fuel?
So first of all, I agree with Squad Leader Devulina that different parameters are taken into account to develop or construct a story and a hypothesis, and then you either uh, um, make it true or you prove it false, right? So that's how it is done. See. Data do not tell a story. They are just digital numbers, right? So when fuel pump is clogged, it will not say the fuel pump is clogged. It will just tell that the flow is less than the normal flow. For example, if the flow is supposed to be 150 gallon per second, I'm giving a hypothetical number, and the data records, the sensor records 90 gallon per second, that is where the investigator will have a clue to use in the story or hypothesis they build, right? So data will not tell the reason. Data will just tell what was happening. It is for the investigators and different parties to now develop a hypothesis, and you falsify it or you verify it to come to a conclusive evidence what would have happened
Okay.
in the aircraft.
Mr. Bhargav, the DGCA has ordered enhanced safety inspections of all Boeing 787-8 and 9s when the aircraft is flying virtually non-stop, like we saw from the flight data, information on the flight radar. Do maintenance schedules take a hit, sir?
Gaurav, it's a good decision because after yesterday's tragic accident, the public confidence in the aircraft would have suffered for sure. Now, how do you try and boost confidence of the traveling public who are going to be flying on a Dreamliner, suddenly recalling, well, 2 days, one day ago, this is what happened to the aircraft and the passengers on board, since people have seen it on television visually number of times on what happened. So once you say that you have a series of additional checks introduced, it does send a positive message to the traveling public. So I am very happy that DGCA has been proactive and given this direction to Air India, and perhaps it should also give it to Indigo, which has 2 Dreamliners already flying, that this is what needs to be done. Very good decision, which is very rare, and I must share with you. So the moment people see it at the airport, additional checks being conducted, in public domain, the information is put, people will feel very, very satisfied and said, look, they are taking requisite action to ensure that what happened on Thursday does not recur.
Oh, absolutely. Because Squad Leader Das, the commander of the aircraft, he had 8,200 hours of flying experience. The co-pilot, we're told, had over 1,100 hours of flying experience. Is there any merit in some aviation enthusiasts and experts and some pilots groups? There's conversation that the pilots are no longer here to defend themselves. They may ultimately be blamed for the crash.
God forbid that happens. We would not want that, especially the pilot community. But as far as my understanding goes, with so much humongous hours of flying, it is really very difficult for a captain and a co pilot to be the reason for a crash at this altitude just after a takeoff. Like, I was seeing the NDTV review of Captain Steve and his third theory, and I somewhere felt that The aircraft might have a lot of checks and lot of cautions and lot of warnings coming up if there is a configuration problem, but so does the brain of a human. I mean, if a flap is taken up instead of a landing gear and the aircraft is going up down, a captain with so much experience will not just try to pull up the nose, but will look into the aircraft to see what is the reason why my aircraft is going down. So it's very difficult, obviously, to pinpoint now that what will come out as the reason. But
Okay.
as we all know that the souls are not there. But if it is so unfortunate that they will be pulled out, it will be a very black mark on the aviation industry. But
No,
I
since you mentioned,
truly believe.
there are these warnings. Mirza Faizan, the Dreamliner I was reading has multiple warning systems. The engine indicating and crew alerting system that monitors hundreds of sensors, the TCAS traffic collision avoidance system, the stall warning system, the tail strike protection system. If any parameter was not being met, that red light that would flash, the alarm that would go off, clearly, is it possible, as some aviation experts argue, that the landing gear was down and the flap was up? Would the aircraft permit that to happen?
I do not agree with that analysis. Pilots with that kind of experience making a mistake, and it's not that the flaps and the landing gear systems are just levers are just next to each other, and the pilot is a newbie who just does that. I normally, and also the sound of landing gear coming up versus the flaps get rolling up, it's entirely different. And when every time I fly, I can find out with the sound. I can find out what's going in the aircraft, right? Which state the aircraft is in. Now these pilots with immense, flying hours under their belt, I don't think that would have happened. And I totally agree with squad leader Debolina. And it's in any investigation, it's easiest to blame the dead man who's not there to defend themselves, right? But if that is done, right, if anyone tries to do that, in fact, when I was looking at this the video, the clips which we have, what I see is that till the last moment, both the pilots have displayed remarkable airmanship, right? They have kept the bird in control, right? And he must be, like, it was just 15 to 20 seconds, and there was a lot of thing happening. I can say the only human error, if you want to put it that way, was that he has too little time to manage too many things, which he could not do it. That is the only
Mr.
thing you can
Bhargav,
say.
okay, what do you make? What do you make of all this speculation of loss of lift and the causes due to loss of thrust? The conversation that it took off flaps up and landing gear down. You heard that. I mean, a lot of pilots have been talking about it and wondering why was this happening.
Yeah, Gaurav, but I've been reluctant to put it in public domain or speculate that this could possibly be the reason for it. There are pilots who have made statements as attributing some cause or the other, but I would rather wait for the investigation to come out and say it's a question of waiting for a few days. The black box will determine and come out with a conclusive evidence as to what really happened about it. But rather than look at it and say, well, I did look at the trajectory of the aircraft flying, having reached 675 feet above, and then you find the nose coming down, and what could possibly have gone was here, and no time being available to the pilot, though pilots are trained for all virtual kind of situations that he may have while flying. But then perhaps because the time was simply just not available with him, he had no choice or he had no control on it, the aircraft, and it crash landed. You see, when we look at it and say very often that when you have the engines off, you gliding. But here the altitude was also very limited, and you
Just
had a building in
675
front
feet.
of it. So where was the time available here? So all that we talk of training pilots for all situations, well, I think in this situation, a very challenging task because the altitude was low, obstacles en route, and there was nothing that he could do. So let's wait for the black box to give us the wealth of information or data that it has in it, and then we come to a conclusion. This was probably the cause of the accident and the death of 265 people.
Yeah, both in the aircraft and on ground. Squad Leader Das, this speculation around could both engines be starved of fuel? Can fuel contamination be an issue? And is there no redundancy to deal with fuel contamination or pipes being clogged in such a scenario?
It's a very far-fetched speculation, because when the engines are open for a takeoff and the aircraft is rolling on the landing roll, any kind of issue that the engine might face or the configuration might face gives out tremendous amount of warnings in the cockpit. If the fuel is not reaching the engine, if there is a drop in the pressure of the fuel, if the engine pumps are clogged, the fuel pumps are clogged, anything going wrong which might be a cause of a disaster after takeoff will have a lot of cautions and warning as soon as you open the power of the aircraft to take off. So the fuels being clogged and the pilots taking off with that is a very low possibility which I
Okay,
can think of.
okay.
The only thing which comes to my mind is that after takeoff, if there could be a cause for a compressor stall or an engine stall, even then both the engines have to stall, and or both the engines have to be hit by a lot of birds, is the only thing that can cause the aircraft to lose the power and stall and go down the ground. Otherwise, any fuel clog, anything like that will have its caution and warning as soon as we take off. And this happens
And
just
then are
30
there
seconds after
redundancies?
takeoff.
Fuel goes from multiple channels in these aircraft. Mirza Faizan, too soon to speculate on either fuel contamination or, as some argue, there could have been electrical failure. There are conspiracy theorists who are talking of suspected or possible sabotage. Is that even possible?
As far as possibility of sabotage is concerned, I don't think that this is a sabotage. But there is one other approach or angle which I think investigator will focus, or the investigator might focus the investigation on. This is a complete fly-by-wire aircraft. Now, try to
Yes.
understand what is fly-by-wire. The pilot gives instruction to the computer, and computer actuates whatever the system has to do. It's not mechanical movement kind of stuff. The throttle of 787 is also fly-by-wire. Now, if there is an issue in the system which is controlling the fly-by-wire, the computer system, the electrical system of the fly-by-wire system, so the instructions sent by pilot to give full throttle to the engine might not be actuated by the engine because it is not reaching. That could be one more angle, investigator could look at, right? Apart from fuel and other angles.
Okay, but in that case, is there no manual override in case the system's not listening to you? Is there a manual override?
Not for throttle, not for
Not for
throttle,
throttle.
right? For ailerons, for the control systems, there is a manual override, but not for throttle. Throttle is completely fly-by-wire.
Excuse me. Bhargav, is sabotage even possible? There are many systems, or are there systems, you've been in this industry for over 20 years with Air India. Are there people who keep an eye on each other to ensure there's no sabotage, or is that possible?
There is a very robust system at the airport, considering that this aircraft had flown from Delhi to Ahmedabad. Nothing happened, nothing untoward had happened. Now, at Ahmedabad airport, naturally, refueling would have been done, technical inspection would have been done by the engineer, and there are people always present. Now, if you look at this kind of a remote chance that, yes, probably somebody played mischief and it got overlooked, which is a feasibility, considering that Ahmedabad airport at that particular time was not having too many aircraft around, etc., that you could probably be caught doing something of this kind. But if somebody has done, he's done it mischievously and smartly, not to have been detected. But then, as I said earlier, the flyby aircraft with everything computer controlled, did the pilot get any kind of a lighting indication, etc., that something was wrong? Something was wrong. And as one of the panelists very rightly said, with the commander having 8,000 plus hours of flying, a mistake of this kind was improbable. But then, if you rule out every kind of a thing, the pilot was experienced, the aircraft has a good track record, the visibility factor was very good. The reality is the accident did take place.
It indeed
Now,
did,
what
and
was
perhaps
it?
it's that, yes, the cockpit voice
That is
recorder
where
and the flight data
the
recorder.
black box become important, the information, and the faster one can get onto it and get this thing, because the data that you get, and Boeing will have a wealth of information, etc. Juxtapose a particular situation on a kind of a previous accident, not involving this accident aircraft, but anything else, and you will probably get some conclusions very clearly and very early.
We'll track that story very closely. I will let that be the last word on this part of the show. Mr. Jitendra Bhargav, squad leader Deb, and Faizan for joining me here on India Today. As always, many thanks. There's been massive escalation in West Asia. Israel early this morning targeted multiple sites across Iran. Nuclear sites, missile strikes, drone strikes, manufacturing sites, military leadership, command and control structure, all of that targeted. Preemptive, powerful strikes. And this targeted attack seems to have eliminated the entire top leadership, military leadership of Iran. From the army chief to the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps chief, 20 commanders have been neutralized. Tehran has pledged to hit back and retaliate. 100 drones were sent, but then each one was intercepted. Is that the worst that Iran can do? Or does it have a couple of aces up its sleeve? US President Donald Trump has sent out a chilling warning to Iran, asking Iran or telling Iran, you either strike a deal or prepare for even more brutal strikes in the days ahead.
Operation Rising Lion, Israel's all-out military offensive against Iran. A preemptive strike that has sent ripples across the globe. Over 100 strategic locations across Iran reduced to rubble in just a matter of minutes. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu has claimed that the IDF has destroyed Iran's military and nuclear infrastructure in order to neutralize its nuclear threat. Confirmed to have died in the strike are Chief of Staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, Major General Mohammad Bagheri, Commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Major General Hossein Salami, and Deputy Commander of Iranian Armed Forces, Major General Gholam Ali Rashid. Senior nuclear scientists Mehdi Tehranshi and Feridun Abbasi were also killed in the strikes.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons.
A wounded Iran has warned of a belligerent response. Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has reminded Israel that it must prepare for a bitter, painful fate. With the world wary of a nuclear flashpoint, the International Atomic Body confirmed that there has been no elevated radiation levels at the Natanz facility after the heart of Iran's nuclear facility was struck by Israel.
The competent Iranian authorities have confirmed that the Natanz enrichment site has been impacted and that there are no elevated radiation levels. This development is deeply concerning. I have repeatedly stated that nuclear facilities must never be attacked, regardless of the context or circumstances.
But with the tensions in the Middle East at an all-time high, an uneasy world can only hope for a de-escalation at the earliest. Bureau Report, India Today.
Joining me on this special broadcast is Israel's ambassador to India, Ambassador Reuven Azar. Ambassador, welcome on India Today. What was the need to mount this Operation Rising Lion right now, sir? What was the specific threat, the specific intelligence input that Israel has to justify being claimed that this was an existential threat to Israel?
Thank you, Gaurav, for this interview. First of all, I would like to extend to you, to the entire Indian nation, our condolences for the terrible plane crash yesterday that claimed so many lives. Our hearts go out to the victims, to the families, and we wish speedy recovery to the injured. What Israel did is to act upon imminent intelligence about a clandestine group that was assembling a nuclear weapon. Now, as you know, Gaurav, we have stated time and again that we will not allow Iran to create a nuclear weapon because we are not going to agree that a country that has sworn to destroy us will actually acquire the means to do it. We have already survived one Holocaust only 80 years ago. We have no intention of having another Holocaust now. We said then never again, and never again is now. So we had to take action, and that's what we did.
Ambassador, explain the targets in terms of the military targets, the nuclear targets, the leadership in Iran. For example, General Hossein Salami, the commander-in-chief of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Why did Israel take him out? Or General Bagheri, the chief of staff. Are you disrupting the chain of command? Reports indicate that former Iranian National Security Advisor Ali Shamkhani has also been killed.
Gaurav, these are the criminals that were in charge of the plan of extermination of our state. They are the ones that assembled all the 3 tracks of extermination that we're pursuing. The nuclear weapons program, the missile ballistic program, and the ring of fire that we're creating with proxies around us. These are the people in charge. These are the people that were relentlessly pursuing our destruction, and we're not listening to the calls of the international community that has been actually talking with them for decades now to renounce this murderous policy. So they pay the price.
Is the American President Donald Trump actually threatening Iran when he says either you sign the deal or there's worse in store? Is Israel that sword arm that's targeting Iran militarily for Iran to sign the deal not to make nuclear weapons?
Well, you know, the Iranians couldn't be convinced to do the right thing. They continued to cheat. The IAEA has mentioned that they were in non-compliance because they breached the safeguards agreement. They had clandestine activities that were occulting, concealing from the international community. So instead of taking President Trump seriously, they exploited, installed, and played for time in order to assemble a nuclear weapon. We got them exposed, and we took action.
Ambassador, explain the choice of targets. Natanz, for example, 250 kilometers south of Tehran. What was the bomb damage assessment that you can share with us?
We don't have information to share at this point, but what I can tell you is that we have actually taken action to take out their military nuclear capability. We have taken action against their missile ballistic program. We have taken action against their leadership, the military leadership, and took action against their air defenses. So all in all, this concerted effort is an effort to neutralize their capability to execute their plan to exterminate the state of Israel.
Ambassador, there are reports 6 nuclear scientists have also been killed in the past 24 hours. In your appreciation, what does this mean for Iran's nuclear program? Is this a setback? Will it set them back by some time? Or is this the end of the nuclear program?
Well, it's too soon to say. We are taking action. This is not over. We have mentioned and declared that if Iran retaliates, we will retaliate again. So we are up to several days of action. We don't know how long this will take, but we are determined to neutralize Iran's nuclear program.
Ambassador, Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, is threatening Israel with a massive strike back. In your appreciation, what are their capabilities to target Israel, given that you've taken down several of their missile production units, launch systems, their air defense systems, even in October, and some now?
Well, as you know, Gaurav, we never took lightly the threats of the Iranian radical regime, because they have not only declared that they want to exterminate us, they have invested tens of billions of dollars in creating the capabilities to attack us. And therefore, we have actually warned the entire Israeli population to take precaution, to stay near shelters. We are anticipating more barrages of missiles and drones from Iran, and we are determined to defend ourselves from it and retaliate to make sure the Iranian capabilities will be decimated.
Because there is an apprehension that this could escalate into a wider regional conflict. Your appreciation, will other countries join in? Will other countries help Iran?
Well, it is completely in the hands of Iran. At the end of the day, if Iran chooses to target more countries, this will be an escalation that will widen the conflict. The Americans have told them, and they've warned them that they should be very careful not to target American targets, not to target others, and if they do, they will bear the consequences.
What is your assessment after the October strikes? October, you had taken out, Israel had taken out a lot of their air defense systems and their missile production capabilities. Is Iran very vulnerable? The fact that you were able to strike with, if I may, impunity, and that too in places like Shiraz, deep inside, what does that indicate?
It indicates that Iran is acting in a brazen way. I stated in this studio and in other studios in the past that the Iranians have been exposed because following their activity, their aggression in April and in October, we have hit their air defenses and we are continuing to hit them. So their attempt to sneak out to a nuclear weapon and to a nuclear arsenal are completely irresponsible, and they are now paying the price for trying to do that.
Can they still make a nuclear bomb in your appreciation?
I don't know. It's too early to say. I don't know. It's too early to say. We are in the midst of this effort. It will take time, but we are going to make sure that we do everything we can to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons.
There are reports that seem to indicate that Israel targeted Iran from inside Iran. Deep inside Iran, you already had your assets in. Is that true?
What I can confirm at this point is that we have taken an operation with our Air Force in an attack that took 200 of our fighter jets, and this is the information I can confirm at this point.
So 200 fighter jets, missiles, and you're willing to do that again?
Absolutely.
What's the threat of a strike back? The threat of a strike back from Iran, from Houthi rebels, the Houthi forces in Yemen?
We have seen, first of all, an initial retaliation from Iran with a barrage of 100 drones that were fired this morning. Fortunately, we've been able to foil and to eliminate all the drones, but more attacks can come, and we are ready to defend ourselves from those.
Any likelihood of peace talks to find a solution peacefully?
Well, we have tried that for so long, and we would wish that the Iranian people, which we don't have anything against, would send a message to this radical leadership that they have, that has sequestrated their future, that has diverted their richness to develop a military capability that's not only threatening Israel, but the entire region, that they will convince them to change course. Because Jews and Farsis, they have been having a great relationship for 3,000 years. And there is no reason why this awful regime would take that from us. We love peace, we love the Iranian people, we have a long-term relationship with the Iranian people, and we can go back to a peaceful and collaborative relationship.
Can you take out, is it also in your target book to take out Ayatollah Ali Khamenei or the top leadership of Iran?
We have been targeting military targets.
Only military, yes. and nuclear scientists, so no political leadership?
No.
Ambassador, for joining me here on this India Today special broadcast, many thanks.
Thank you, Gaurav.